So not much really to write here in terms of code, but just to give an idea about accessibility and performance. So there are two articles that I would really suggest. You go to MD and Docs and you kind of understand how to, optimize your CSS for performance. Very few important things that you should not be adding unnecessary styles. So basically you shouldn't write CSS rules that are not being used anywhere, because it takes on rendering time. So even if that CSS is not being used on an element, it still is unoperational, but it has to be read by the compiler. So avoid that. Split CSS into separate modules. So you should split your CSS for different style pieces and not render it if necessary. For example, if you have a CSS file just for your button stylings, if you have a CSS file for your forms, if you have a CSS file for your regular pages, right? So if there is no form on a page, why use that form CSS, right? You should not use that and keep it in that file and do not import it. But if you have a form, only then you should import it, right? Minify and compress your CSS. This is something apparently related to JavaScript frameworks. So these frameworks will minify the CSS for you. So I don't know how to do that right now. Simplifying selectors, yeah. So if you have a very specific selector that you are declaring with this, but you can just give it a ID or a class and get it done, it's more preferable to do that. Don't apply styles to more elements than needed. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Preload important assets. You can use relation preload to turn link elements into preloaders for critical assets. This includes CSS files, fonts, and images. With preload, the browser will fetch the referenced resources as soon as possible and make them available to browser cache, so they will be ready for use sooner when they're referenced in subsequent code. Okay. I don't think we use relation preload anywhere, so maybe it's okay. You can use it for images and fonts. Fine. Accessibility, another important topic. It's kind of about making sure that any code that you write is readable and usable by anyone, even with disabilities. So you have to make sure that you have good text sizing and layout, can be read properly, has a good color contrast. The color contrast should not be like merging, like you can't be using black text over black backgrounds, right? It's not readable. But you cannot use gray text over black as well, because that also is not really readable. So it's preferred that you use accessible color contrasts, right? um, it's important that you use uh, use semantics, right? It's important that you use focus and hover styles, because then people know when they are interacting with something, right? So for example, if I don't have an underline here and I'm hovering over CSS, how will I know that I'm hovering over CSS, right? Or if it is clickable and it goes to somewhere else, right? Don't use too many animations. Use animation subtly and provide controls to turn it off. Best practices for hiding content so that doesn't become inaccessible. JavaScript, again, using events assembly to look out for specific control types. I don't understand these two, but yeah, the four other points are very important. I think there must be somewhere there's a term, yeah. What is this? So WAI area, the purpose of this is to provide semantics to otherwise non-semantic HTML so that AT users can make sense of the interfaces being presented to them, right? So for example, you have to use nav, footer, and all of that. Um, so let's say WAI area is Web Accessibility Initiative, accessible rich internet applications. Definition of it can be applied to elements to provide additional semantics. Okay. Yeah. You should only use WA area when you need to. Using the correct HTML elements implicitly gives you the roles that are needed. So if you have done your job at using nav or article or sections, kind of does the job, rather than uh, like, you shouldn't define the area role explicitly unless needed, right? For instance, if you have used article, it knows that you are using an article. If you are using aside, it knows you are using aside. So that's okay, not an issue, right? So yeah, yeah, there's something called area label attribute. So what does it do? Has been given an area label which gives it a descriptive label to be read out by a screen reader. So if screen readers are there, they will read this area label and say search to the site content, right? So area labels, like if you have kind of given required tags, you don't need them. But otherwise, something like an input that requires some context, you will need to describe this with an area label, right? Or if you have multiple input fields with different items. So yeah, that's accessibility and performance for you. I'll link these articles in the description so you can go check them out. But yeah, I think these are important in the sense that you kind of need to read them when you are going through making like full-on apps, so you don't unintentionally create how do you call it, really bad HTML and CSS structures.